Lonnie, Jamie told me you guys had a terrible week, just that you were just a jerk for 6 straight days.
Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah. Okay. So we're done then. Good. Good. I'm hungry. I need some lunch. No, she said you guys had a really good week.
Oh yeah.
Good. Good. What was the difference?
Uh, I'd say the difference is if I've had to handle anything, I did it, tried to do it the best way, God's way, and really got the message that you had us search for,
Hmm.
and really now understand the differences between um, dealing with things that obstacles that come towards us in life,
Hmm.
by doing it, thinking about it in a spiritual way or the spiritual realm versus, you know, in the flesh.
Yeah.
And I think mainly the outcome, whether other people like it or they don't, is a lot better because then it doesn't put myself individually in positions that I don't want to be in and got to find a way out of, nor does it allow, um, you know, evil spirits to interfere in my marriage and keeps the both of us stronger in the long run.
Good stuff.
So, there might be or there will be work to do still or something else to come along. However, it's better.
Good.
It's,
That's
it's
good
just
stuff,
better.
buddy. That's really good stuff. Jamie, how about you and your response?
Um, so I agree completely. Uh, I feel like one thing that stands out for me too as we go along and learn is, um, hold on a second, I'm coming up on some traffic here. Okay. I think it's important for us to always make sure that our motives follow the Bible's instructions for boundaries in our home and in our life, um, not in a self-serving way is my point,
Hmm.
like not about our pride or how we can control something. And Lonnie's really doing great with that. It's not about what's easier for us. It's about exemplifying Christ through our
Mm.
action. And I'm learning that if I'm going to do that, it just falls right into place with me working on not enabling or condoning anyone to sin around me, and that includes myself
Hmm.
and our relationship, my husband, everybody.
Man, I am overwhelmed.
And the largest thing, if I can piggyback off of what she said, something that we've discussed is the fact that not only do we have to conduct ourselves in a way where we're respecting our marriage, our vows, the things that, are the roles that God placed for us,
Hmm.
we also have to conduct ourselves in a way that makes other people accountable to God's words, which was our marriages to be held honorable among all. Well,
Hmm.
if they're not trying to honor our marriage, then we have to conduct ourselves in ways where we eliminate the possibility for them not to honor our marriage.
Hmm.
It's causing us to be in
That'll preach,
and
brother.
opposite.
That will preach. That is a Sunday morning sermon. You know what?
I mean, seriously.
You, you guys, you're overwhelming me at the moment. Your growth is. I've got chills down my arms.
Good.
I am so proud of you guys. I don't think I can express it sincere enough where you could actually feel my just sense of godly pride for you guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. We
I
really do
just
want to grow in it and keep all these things in mind and really, you know, just, I don't know. I feel like it's funny too because Tristan came to me this week. We were on a drive back from my mom's camp and we had like the most amazing conversation. And he just was like, you know, you guys are really giving us such a great example right now. And I feel like I'm growing in my faith so much. And he's like, I feel like I believe more than I ever did believe. And,
Oh
you
my
know, so it's
gosh.
just like,
Whew.
it's so
Glory.
nice to see it.
And to highlight
I
something that he
know.
said that was
And it made me
profound
cry.
was,
He was like, why are you crying? I'm like,
Why do what, Jamie? I
oh, I'm
missed.
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, babe.
I'm
That was
sorry.
gonna
I
be
didn't
my
mean to
next thing.
interrupt. It was so profound to hear him say that myself, his mom, can you hear me or am I sounding weird?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
His Jamie, myself, his father, his father's ex-wife, during Tristan's transition from living in a home with his mother and his father, and there being a marriage there, and then they're getting a divorce, and then that was an impact on him. He profoundly said that the way that everyone conducted themselves and cared about his feelings, cared about you know, his wants, his needs, and did everything amongst them ourselves to get along. He said he has in his own life, which he's only 15 years old, has never heard of nor seen or experienced any of his friends, family members who have gone through divorce and the aftermath was as good as what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So he thanked his mother and was like, "I'm so glad that you were that way, and you and all of you worked together to do things that way." And I really don't think I've been negatively affected from the divorce and new lives going on and an
Yeah.
adjustment.
Wow.
So
Wow. Now, Jamie,
Yeah.
go ahead. I
Okay.
think you said something about Tristan told you that he said that he now believes more than ever. Did he elaborate on that?
Yeah, he said he believed more than he ever has because of the way that, you know, he can see the change in me and Lonnie,
Mm-mm-mm.
and putting God first in our marriage. And he said he said even when he gets upset with us now and he wants to have like that teen attitude, that he reminds himself that he truly trusts us, that we are trying
Oof.
to do what is best for him. And like, uh, you know, I'm not a, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yeah,
Can you hear me?
yes,
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I
I
thought
think
I
I
was in
couldn't hear you.
Canada,
All right.
Canada
All right. I
land.
should be all good now. Uh, Canadian land. So, and then to even further that, he said, so through like just seeing you guys handle your divorce so well, and you know how awesome you and Lonnie are doing with your um journey right now and stuff, he's like, I decided, like, even more so now that I've realized the reason I'm not interested in dating or girls or anything like that is because when I do date, I want to date for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, I don't want to start dating until and he's like, so I'm not ready for marriage right now. So there's no point in dating. I'm not going to just date to have sex with somebody or anything like that. He's like, that's not the way that we should do it. And that's not in my nature. So I'm just so immensely proud of him and feel really, really good that I feel like we're definitely restoring some order, not even restoring, I guess, like starting to have order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And now when that happens, and you've heard me say it before, you get things in order. God moves. Because now he has the opportunity to move. So,
Exactly.
and you guys are just, I mean, that is an impactful story that you're seeing a change in your
Yeah,
kids already. We're 6 months into this,
that's not that long. Yeah.
and here they are, at least Tristan. And even Hayden probably is. He's just not into the place where he can admit it. But at least Tristan said something, which most 15-year-olds don't even say anything. So that is
Yeah.
a powerful testimony. And that, you guys, is marriage God's way. That's exactly the impact it's supposed to have.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely know for a fact that
you know, without doing it God's way, there's no way. There's no way we would have been able to do the things that we've done to make that conversation possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, and I
Yeah.
wanted to clarify something. I thought about sending you a message, Lonnie. Last
Mhm.
week, I asked the question, and the way I asked it when we hung up, I got to thinking about it. I thought, I hope he didn't take that the wrong way. But I said, we were talking about the spiritual battles. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. And I said, are you the man or not? And I thought, that could have come across as he's saying I'm not the man. Like,
No, I didn't take it. I did
Okay.
not take it that way. I took it more like, a pat on the butt saying good game,
right. Okay,
or,
good. Good.
like a camaraderie type thing,
Yes,
holding me accountable man to man.
that's right. Okay,
That's
as
how
long
I
as,
took it.
yeah, good, because I am not touching your butt. You can forget that. I don't care how pretty or ugly I am, not doing it.
Right. Well, I applaud that.
So did you guys happen to find that scripture I challenged you to look for?
I mean, I hope so.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, are you in a position to
think-
tell me? I don't want you to be driving and look it up.
Yes, I am. I just got home officially, so let me see here.
Last thing I want to hear is, here it is. Oops.
I know. No, that would be terrible. Do.
Sorry about the background noise.
Oh, dude, that's calm compared to what I'm used to. And while she's looking, I'll give you a quick update. Looking at starting back up on Mondays, I'm kind of pushing it out a little bit, not because I'm not anxious to get into it, but I have other things I'm trying to shore up so I don't get overwhelmed again with so much going on. So we're looking at either the 3rd or 10th of July. The 10th would be the absolute latest that we would start. I thought about doing the 3rd and just having a little, hey, everybody, how's it going? What's been going on? That type of a catch up deal. But I know people on vacation. Like I have 2 people that have been in my in-person workshop that are interested in coming, and both are gone July 3rd because of the holiday and vacation and all that. So I thought, what, we might just start it on the 10th. So that's kind of where it's looking right now. My book should be here on Saturday. I have the order form ready for it on Marital Monkey.
Okay.
So I will send out information about all of that as well. So you guys can go through that. You can either go through the form there and get it, or just send me your address. I'll send it however you want to do it. But I'll probably just send a link in a message, like in the Marital Monkey group, for the dudes who want the book. They can just click on the link and go get it.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. On a side note, if I can, real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever been to Canada, John?
I have.
Have you driven while you came here?
No, I have only navigated. I was with the band.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well,
we
I just wanted to say go ahead.
Yeah, we toured up in Western Canada, BC.
Nice.
So
Yeah. No, I just wanted to point out the fact that I'm not sure where these people got their driving skills, but for some reason, customarily, they switch lanes, I guess, just because they're bored.
yeah.
It makes absolute no sense the way that they drive. It's not even strategic. It's not even like they're trying to get somewhere. I just can't figure it out in order to, do as Romans do when you're in Rome in order to,
Yeah.
it boggles my mind the
Yeah,
way they drive.
Well, we're talking 35 years ago when I was there, so I don't remember much about that. All I remember was I got to go into the world's largest mall. I got to see the world's largest cuckoo clock, and we had to stop when we were traveling because there were a bunch of Rams in the middle of the road eating gravel. And we got out of the truck and actually walked up to them, and they never budged. They just sat there and ate. We had to wait for them to finish, and while they were doing that, we look up on the mountain. There's a wild mountain goat up there. It was pretty cool. It was a beautiful country, though. At least in the BC.
Yeah, it's beautiful up here.
Yeah.
It is beautiful up here. I've traveled all the way, well, not all the way across, but from New York side to Michigan side, came
Mhm,
over the Ambassador Bridge and came into Detroit area.
mhm.
And I tell you what, it's just beautiful.
Yeah,
But customarily, the way that people move about, I don't care if it's on bicycle, motorcycle, car, I just don't understand, because when you're a driver, I can see young people, but when you're a driver of anything, the majority of us become very strategic in the fact that how things flow, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And if you do something in traffic that, could cause a problem, you know, we try not to do it. Or if we do, we try to do it in a way where it doesn't, if
yeah.
we have to. But up here, there's no rhyme or reason to why they do anything in
Mhm,
traffic.
yeah. Hey,
And
I've got.
I
Oh,
know it's not important to this, but
yeah. Hey, I've got a joke for you. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I
let's,
don't. I just switched lanes because I was bored.
there you go. Yeah, I mean,
That actually
they'll
is
go from the
funny.
right, lane where it's clear. They have nobody in front of them. Pass by you, or you have a car in front of you, and they will squeeze right in the middle.
That's
Stay there
crazy.
till 7 cars pass them on the left, and then get right back over there.
Oh yeah, I
And
hated
it's
that.
pointless. It's
Yeah.
pointless.
The band I was in here, my most recent, not most recent, but the more successful band I was in, we signed a small record deal, and our bass player singer would haul the trailer, and he
Mhm.
would hang out in the left lane with that
Oh, I hate that.
16-foot trailer. I'm like, dude, scoot over. Then he did exactly what you would say. He would get over to the right lane when people would get up on his tail. They'd pass, and then he'd go
Mhm.
right back to the left lane. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm not putting our band name on that trailer, man. We'll be getting phone calls. Anyway, so
So, anywho, we were thinking that we're probably somewhere in Ephesians, right?
that's right.
We're thinking Ephesians 6.
6 is correct.
Okay, and then we were thinking probably maybe even just the first one, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities. But either that or therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground.
Every bit of it.
All of it. Okay,
I
good.
think it was starting in verse 10. Am I right? Ephesians 6:10.
6:12.
12. Okay.
Yep.
I knew it was in that ballpark somewhere. Yeah.
Yes.
And that flat out tells you not only who you're truly battling, it tells you how to battle. And so,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a tidbit. When we get back together on Monday nights, I'm thinking about starting that whole deal off, kind of reversing back to the way I used to do it for the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, and then splitting up, because I think a lot of us think our spouse is the enemy, because the enemy can use godly people to get under your skin and cause you to be distracted. And you don't have to be a Satanist or a non-Christian for Satan to use you.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it'd have been no point for Paul to say, don't give the devil a foothold. So I think it's important for I don't know if I'm going to do it for sure or not, but I'm thinking about starting off and going through our weapons and say, this is how you fight, not by yelling at each other and all that. This is how you fight, and making sure that we
Right.
have an understanding of, we truly are in a spiritual battle. It's not fleshly. And if
And even if we'd started out separate and then came together, those that feel like they weren't maybe in the right frame of mind will feel pretty convicted and be like, wow,
Right.
I guess I need to,
right, and
so however you do it will be impactful.
yeah,
That's me. Check, please.
What'd you say, honey?
Oh,
I said, that's me. Check, please. I wasn't, but now I am.
well, I thought he was talking to a DOT officer. Check, please. I'm out of here. No, you know what, Lonnie? To you and Jamie, I'm going to say this, and I want you guys to contemplate this.
Okay.
I might I would love for you guys to testify and come into whatever group that I decide to pick out to start this thing off as a testimony to what happens when you do it God's way.
Okay.
Now, you guys can talk about it, discuss it. If you want to do it, then I'm going to let you guys do that. I think it would be a powerful, I mean, because what you guys just told me a few minutes ago, just, I was like, whoa, that's incredible. So encourage the people that are there that, Jamie, I think, the way you both said it was incredible. But one thing that stuck out to me, how everybody, you can go to a church service that's fantastic. Teaching is incredible, but there's something that just pops out.
Mhm.
Well, it was when Jamie, you said, when I stop enabling people. That's
Yeah.
what I was like, wow, 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 wow. And I use you guys a lot without giving out who you are to other couples. And it blesses me that I get to use your story, because here's what I met with a new couple last night. And I said, look, guys, because this lady said almost the same thing I hear every time. I don't think our marriage is salvageable. I don't think there's any hope. And I said, the last time I heard that from somebody, they're thriving now. So when I met
Yeah.
with them last night, I said, well, let me explain something to you. I said, one thing I've learned in my experience dealing with marriages is that if you come in here and saying, well, he this and he that, or she this and she that, you guys aren't going to get very far, because you're ignoring where you get to grow. And I said, let me tell you a story. And I said, the first time or the second, whatever it was, I met with this couple, I said, he was ready to move out. And we chatted a little bit, gave him some scriptures. He realized that was not the right thing to do. This is how I tell the story. I said, and so, yeah, we talked about things that the other does. I mean, we got to work through those issues, but ultimately it's up to us to grow. And if both of you do that, you can get through this. That's a promise. I said, because God's way works every single time. I said, this is a man who sat on my screen in a one-on-one discussion and cried. And I can remember exactly what you said, Lonnie. That's not what I told them, but I did tell him what you said. I said, this man looked at me and said, man, John, I thought I had this right, and I don't. And he sat there and cried. And I said, by the way, that's a man right there. Jesus wept too. And I said, but it wasn't just him. I said, we addressed some issues that she was dealing with, and she has made the efforts. And I said, now they're thriving. And I use you guys as a testimony to what happens when you are willing to receive and listen and grow. And today's testimony is about as good of a testimony as I've ever heard so far. So I want to say thank you to you both.
Ooh. Well, you're
Well,
welcome.
you're absolutely welcome.
We appreciate you. We wouldn't, I don't know where we would be without you, honestly.
Yeah.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that, you said you typically don't respond to posts like that on that Christian marriage fight, but something told you, you know what, I'm just gonna, encourage a little bit, and
Yeah.
thank God. Thank God.
Yeah. And I especially want to thank God while all three of us are here, because he gives you the ability, despite some of the ways that we have to perceive the world and perceive the word of God. He speaks to you in a way where he doesn't speak to a lot of us because of who you are. And I'm thankful for you through him, that he gives you the ability to do that, because a lot of us in this world are very set in our ways, and just caught up in a web of what has happened to ourselves in life, and we have adapted. And once you adapt, it's one of those things that's hard to break or to it's better the other way. And I'm just thankful that you have the gifts,
Well,
and
thank you,
thankful
man.
that he
Yeah.
gives them to you to be able to speak to people the way that you do. Not only for myself and my wife and my family, but also that gentleman who, I don't know how old he is, but he knows nothing of the word and has just lived his whole life believing in happenstance or luck or whatever.
Yeah,
And you're able to at least communicate with him. That takes a lot, you know?
I appreciate it,
So,
man. I really do, both of you. It, the encouragement is very welcomed. Everybody likes to have a bit of validation, you know what I mean? Like, you don't do it for
right,
you, you do it for the glory of God, to help people recognize, in my case, God's design for marriage, or even in self-development. That, like that guy you were just talking about. I'm just a messenger, dude. That's just it. I'm just a messenger. But I also thank God for it. Just I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't want to get all sentimental and goofy sappy, but that's kind of my personality. So I
right.
sit back and I'm overwhelmed and amazed at it. I just am.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And
Me
so,
too. I think sometimes it's important to allow yourself those moments too, because, I mean, honestly, before we talked to you today, like we talked about the conversation with Trist and just, the good things that have been happening, but still at the end of the day, we really haven't given, you know, um, any thought to it. I would say in the past week, I don't feel like we have, Lonnie. Maybe I'm wrong with you, but not that we've discussed anyway, like, the true progress that we have made. We're still just powering through what's next, what's next, what's next. How do we grow? Being upset with ourselves in the ways and upset with each other the week before last for the ways that we felt like we backpedaled um, or weren't focusing on the right things in those moments. But, I mean, the proof is in other people's observations of us that we are making strides, and those moments should be celebrated a little bit too, just to keep us motivated to continue and
mhm.
recognize the great things that we are doing.
Yeah, First Thessalonians 5:11 says to continue to encourage one another just as you were doing. There's a reason for that. There's a
Yeah,
reason the
that
Bible tells you
encouragement
to
is
continue to
important.
encourage. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And rejoicing in the fact that it's it's salvation in itself,
Yeah.
to come to a revelation and to actually have is something that should be.
Oh, I totally like teared up, and Tristan was like, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "There's literally nothing on this planet that's more important to me than our relationships with God, and knowing that you are truly saved, Trist. Knowing that you really believe anything could happen to me tomorrow. Anything could happen to Lonnie tomorrow, and we would both still feel so good knowing that when we get to the point where it's Hayden too, but when our children are good and saved and we know that we've done our job with them
Yeah.
and we feel at peace with all those things, it's like you've really succeeded in the areas that you were truly worried about. It's
Hmm.
everything. Your eternity is everything to us.
Yeah,
So,
I
absolutely.
don't I don't
uh,
mean to interject, but I gotta mute you guys for a second. I have to go through the border.
Okay.
okay.
I think what he said was he's going to Taco Bell. But that is so beautiful though, because you're the first couple. I mean, I see movement in couples and all that, but I've never heard anybody yet say that someone else, due to your change and your growth and your marriage, makes them believe in God even more. That
Yeah,
that is so powerful.
I'm so thankful for it. I'm really, really like that made me feel so wonderful to know that And actually, we started talking. I would like your opinion about this too.
Okay.
We started talking about, someday when he does have his own children and how he will and what he thinks he'll do as far as like how to lead his family in God and all that kind of stuff. And, he's only 15, but he thinks about like these big things. I
Yeah.
mean, he's so funny sometimes. He told me and Lonnie out of the blue, probably a month or two ago, maybe, that his biggest fear, literally, as a 15-year-old kid, my biggest fear is that I will have a special needs child that's severely disabled and they'll suffer. And I think about it pretty often. I'm like, who thinks about that at 15? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so he's a very deep thinker. He's just that type of person. And he said that he's actually not sure what he'll do in that case because he feels like he wouldn't have like organically come to his own faith like he did if we pushed it too hard when he was younger.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I could think of in that moment was just simply telling him, well, I really, I'm glad that, of course, you've come to your faith in your own way, buddy, but I still think that what's most important is to read the Bible and do what the Bible says. So we have to trust that while it may have been in God's plan for whatever reason for you, that, you weren't, given the word as early as you could be consistently, we've always, taught him about God and believed and everything. But just now we're like living it every day in our home. And we weren't really doing that before. And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
And he said, and so what I told him was like, just remember God's way is always the best way. So if we think as, for ourselves, hey, it worked for me, it'll probably be fine for my kids too. Well, maybe that's not what God's plan is. I can't imagine that, just doing it your way is gonna ever be the best way. It's not, so do you have any other suggestions, or do you think that that was probably the best way to tackle that? Or
You're talking about his fear of having maybe a handicapped child or something?
I'm really just talking about his thoughts on not wanting to push the Bible on his kiddos from a young age. He likes, he likes his point to me was that he doesn't think that he would have come to it as organically as he did if I would have taught him so fervently from the beginning.
Yeah, that's, to have a blanket answer is hard because everybody's different. However, the Bible does instruct us to train up a child in the way they should go.
Right.
So you want to train them. I don't think it's ever good to force something down somebody's throat.
Right. I don't either.
And I've heard testimonies of where it got forced down their throat, and that's what helped them to recognize, I guess. I'm still not in favor of it because you can burn somebody out, or they can get annoyed with the constant pressure. But that doesn't mean not to take them to church. That means put their butts in the car and get them to church. And that becomes a normal thing for them. They might say, I don't want to go. I say, it's okay. It's only an hour, 2 hours, whatever. But it's still your responsibility as a parent to take them, because then you look at the flip side. What happens if they aren't really grounded in the word because you neglected to take them at a younger age? Well, then who's accountable at that point? Well, of course you are, and I don't want any part of that. So the way I handled it, Jamie, was always teaching when the moment presented itself. But not being so overdone that it's like, are you kidding, Dad, again? That type of a deal. But the biggest example is your lives, living that life.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it firsthand right now.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like we walk around the house all day, every day now, praise God. I'm sure you guys don't either, you're living, you have your organic, just however you handle your day and go about your stuff, but you give the appropriate time to God, and you make sure that just how you handle individual situations as they come along is in God's way. And I hope that that's, enough at the end of the day. I do agree with you. It can't be too much all the time, or it could be a problem too that way.
Yeah, and you talked about that, let's say, I don't know. Let me use your marriage as an example. No, let's not do that. Let's say that something happens throughout the day and I have grandkids around and I slam my desk and push my screen off the desk and just throw a huge fit because I tried to save a document and it reverted back and I lost my paragraph. But yet I walk around the house going, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God. I am really setting a bad example.
Right. And isn't that one of the worst sins that we can do is, our actions making someone turn away from God?
That's right. Now, I could say, well, they wouldn't know it in a situation that small, oops, delete my paragraph. I need to retype it. They don't know that happened. They will notice if I respond negatively toward it. And so then they start to see, wow, Papa John spilled his water all over the place and he laughed about it. And then they want to know how. Why do you react like that? Everybody gets mad. Why should I get mad at that? God gave me a beautiful home. I had something to drink. I'm thankful for those dirty dishes because that means I have something to eat. Because that's what God wants us
Absolutely.
to be grateful. And then there's a teaching moment, and then you drop it and go. That's a seed.
Yeah, you're right. A seed that's being planted and it'll grow on its own. That's all you need.
Yeah. Well, God will make it grow. 1 Corinthians,
God will make it grow.
blah, blah,
That's
blah.
right.
Yeah. Whatever verse that was. Chapter, I've never forgotten it. But
That
yeah.
makes me feel better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Have the faith.
That's right. Because what you do is you plant the seed. And then you pray for God to either send somebody to water it, or Lonnie gets to water it, or even you get to water it, depending on the scenario. And then just ask God to help that seed grow. Because you can't make it grow. He does that. That's all God's job. You plant the seed, do your job, let him handle the rest. But you also have to make sure that they're grounded and they have a good solid foundation for that seed to grow. And that's where your lives, as an example, come into. That's when they hear you guys pray together. That's when they go to church with you and they see the joy you guys have. And it sticks most of the time. So yeah.
Yeah.
That would be my answer.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Like I have a 10-year-old little granddaughter that is she's like a sponge. And I love sitting down and teaching her the Bible. But I don't do it every single time she's here. If she brings it up, I'll sit and talk to her about it, and she'll ask 1,000 questions, and I get to explain how it all works. Yeah, and so she's a sponge. She wants to know, but she's 10, so those seeds are being planted in her, and it's up to God to make it grow.
I like that. I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves, and even though we have that faith, we feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're doing it yourself. Like, oh, it's up to me. I have to say the right things and do the right things all the time, or else.
That's right. And you're putting too much pressure on yourself. And what you're doing at that point is trying to trust yourself more than you trust God to do what he said he would do.
And that's not good. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So, gosh, I can't remember the chapter. 1 Corinthians, I want to say 7. If you want to jot that down, Jamie, just to go back and refresh.
Yeah.
Because toward the end of that chapter, it says that we are going to be judged by our works based on the role we've been given. And what are you building on the foundation? Are you using gold, silver, precious stones, or hay, straw, and rubble? And it says that if you're building, like when it's time for judgment, our works are tried by fire. And if you're building with hay, straw, and all of that, you're gonna get scorched. You still make it. But I taught that lesson on my Wednesday night class and I named it Get Something Shiny or Get a Scorched Tiny. Because you're either gonna barely squeak in or you're gonna be there with a gold reward waiting. And here's the thing about that. People look at gold and silver and the precious stones. Well, gosh, God's not going to give me a reward like that. I just cleaned the church. No, you're judged according to the task you've been given. So a guy who goes and cleans a toilet might get a gold reward, and me, who is in full-time ministry, working with couples and writing books, I might get a precious stone reward instead. Because maybe I didn't give it all I had. Maybe I let my mind go in the wrong direction, or maybe I didn't listen to God when he said to do this or that. I don't know how God judges all of that. But just because I'm more in the public eye doesn't mean that the guy that cleans the church toilet doesn't get a better reward, because that's his task that he's been given. I think we get too caught up in the
Right.
public figure perception versus what really is going on. What do you have to work with and what are you doing with it?
Can you guys hear me?
Unfortunately, I mean, yes.
Well, I got a quick thing that I feel like God may have just dropped on me. And we're talking about, I came back into the conversations and you're talking about planting seeds. And when we plant seeds, the only thing I feel like the only thing we can be in control of is our role and how we conduct ourselves while we're doing it, just like you were saying. And what gave me that realization was a conversation I just now had with the border agent for the US side. Coming through there, I muted you guys, I set my headset down, and he was like, asked me the normal questions about what I'm hauling and stuff. And he was a nice guy, a little more chatty than most. And he was like, well, it looks like we finally turned. Well, here goes another person who just drives like, I don't know what, almost got ran over. So he says to me, boy, it looks like we've, changed, our weather has changed and it's gotten a whole lot better and it's a lot warmer. And I was like, yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I said, a lot of times my wife and I plant a garden, and I said, we haven't planted any seeds in the garden yet because we've gotten frosts. I said, but it's been about a week. And he goes, yeah, but you never know, it might come back, this and that. I said, yeah. I go, and the crazy thing is, with the weather, you can't even trust the Farmer's Almanac anymore because it's almost like witchcraft at this point. And before I even picked up my headset, he laughed about it and understood what I was saying. And before I even picked up my headset, all of a sudden I got this feeling like, what we're doing, especially with our kids and family members and the people around us in our roles, where it affects other people, I thought to myself, it's like we're planting seeds. And sometimes some people are just not ready, or they don't get it, or they don't understand, just like the weather is and the ground isn't easily pliable and stuff.
Yeah.
We still have a job to do. That's the part that we do know. But what's the variable? The variable is, a lot of times in the Bible, things are said in parables or in ways that, God says he wants it this way, but there are times where it may not always have to be to that fashion. You might have to bend a little bit, and you might have to work with it a little bit and have patience. Doesn't mean that you have to not have boundaries. Doesn't mean that you don't have to heed the atmosphere that you're in and so on and so forth, because you could very well, apply what you normally apply, but it might be too much for the conditions.
That's right.
You might give too much water and it's already rainy season. You might, plant it out in the sun so that it'll get sun, but the sun is searing hot and it's only going to kill the plant anyway. Maybe it needs a little shade. And that's how people are around us. They're in control of themselves, no matter how they are representing themselves. Only thing we can do is work with that and do things in a way where God can do his part, you do your part, another person does their part. And instead of fighting with each other, you know, work
Yep.
together, realize what the conditions are, and plant your seeds in a way where they're going to be fruitful.
Yep. You know,
It just, that's what came on me, and all the words that I used, it came on me just like that, where I couldn't even explain it the way it came on to me that quickly.
yeah,
I don't know.
that's awesome. But yeah, we were talking about again, it's either First Corinthians 6 or 7. I think it's 7 where um you had Paul, you had Apollos. These two guys are working on this Corinthian church. Because of Paul, some of them got saved. Because of Apollos, some of them got saved. And these Corinthians are arguing which leader's the greater, Paul or Apollos. So Paul essentially has a fan club, as does Apollos. And Paul shut them up. He said, we're nothing. We are here to do what we're called to do, is essentially what he said. I'm Paul, I planted the seed, but Apollos was called to water it. But it's God's job to make it grow. And then he goes on and says that we were here for one purpose. Think about this, how this applies to marriage. We were here for one purpose, and that was to lead you guys to Jesus. My role was different than his, but we had one purpose. A husband role is different than a wife roles, but you have one purpose. And each of you, although you're a team, you're working together, you each have a task. You get, even though you're together, you're judged individually according to how you operated in the task given to you. And that's where the gold, silver, precious stones, hay, and straw all comes in. What did you do with your role that you've been given? So you can't blame it on Lonnie, Jamie, Lonnie can't blame it on Jamie. Well, you this, and you caused me to this. And no. God says you are judged according to the task you've been given. The one thing that I used to do, which I'm going to get back into it, but going through tough times, here's a great question. I don't remember why I came up with this. Or somebody told me, I don't remember. But I just remember sitting back in my chair and I verbally out loud said, God, what are you trying to teach me through this? What can I learn through these moments of difficulties? When you look at it like that, all of a sudden you're like, okay, even though it's a tough time, I've now got an opportunity to learn something. So lots of different ways to approach this stuff.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that this conversation turned to this teaching today. Lonnie, what do you think about, how God just spoke to you and everything John just said, and how we can apply it in our own family?
Well, I think that as far as I'm concerned, in conducting myself, is I have to remember that, the spoken word, a direction, a teaching, showing someone something or talking to them. I have to look at who the person is, how they come across, so on and so forth. Essentially, not let them take me off of my axis or out of my spiritual knowing. What I know right now, and how I feel about how I approach certain tasks, no matter how hard they are. I mean, if God is what makes things grow, if he is the power that drives the cart, so to speak, and if all I have to do is make sure that the motor is running, that's all I have to do. I can't make myself accountable for more if that's what I'm doing. And if others that are involved don't, then I can't let that make myself upset to the point where I break the cart down because of my anger. I can't, then none of us have a ride. None of us can make it there because I'm making it hard for everyone. If that cart is how we're going to get there, but God is the one that's going to drive it. If that cart isn't running when he gets here, and that's my job, then how are we going anywhere? How's he going to drive it? How are we going to ride in it? I guess that's how I'm looking at it. if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
You know.
you mentioned something about anger. You guys remember the night of comedy, obviously. Well, I had Dennis Gaxiola come to our marriage class, and he said a statement. And after he said it, him being a comedian, said, sorry about that, John. I never even responded in a comical way. I said, dude, I'm still trying to absorb what you just said. And anger is a really good one to apply this to. But here's what he said: what binds you blinds you. So if you're bound by anger, that anger will blind you, and it will distract you from God's purpose and direction. There's no doubt about it.
That's powerful.
That is powerful. I like that a lot.
You know, and you could even use that statement on things like cell phones. If you're so addicted or bound by your cell phone, you're blinded. Whatever the enemy can use to distract you off of God's purpose for you, he's going to use it. And it can be things that are just perfectly fine. He can even use your spouse to blind you. So you're supposed to be. Here's what I said one time, guys. I told in my former church at the time, it was our worship leader. I said, you know, sometimes I feel guilty because of how passionate I am about my wife. I said, Tanya is just, I adore that woman almost to scary levels. And he just looked at me in the only way he could do it. He was very laid back, very passive. And he said, well, the Bible does say love your wife as Christ loved the church. So I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I went, I never thought about it like that because I was scared. I was lifting her up above God. But the word as means in the same way. Think about it. Love your wife in the same way Christ loved his church. Well, okay, I can go with that, but he's still my priority. But, you know, the way I feel and think about Tanya is it was to the point where it was making me nervous.
Yeah.
Because I adore
And to what
her.
you said. Go ahead.
No, I was just finishing the I adore her thing.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I was just gonna say, I think that's so cute. And I think actually, you know, I have had those thoughts myself too, where I've had to remind myself, okay, it's perfectly wonderful and godly expected for me to love Lonnie the way that I do, but I just need to make sure that I'm putting God first and loving him that much.
Right.
Also.
Right.
That's kind of like I'm like, oh man, I don't know, would I be more devastated if this or that? And I try not to use those comparisons in my mind and get myself thinking too deeply on it, other than just simply, like you said, we are supposed to love to that effect.
Yep. Well, you know, the Song of Solomon talks about incredible, passionate love. Then you go, and I can't remember the way this verse is worded, so bear with me as I try to get it out and make sense. But Jesus said something to the effect of, if you love me, I'm going to just say it in my own words. I wish I could remember how it's worded, but basically, if you love me and you don't hate your mom and dad and hate your sisters and hate your aunts and uncles and hate your kids, you have no part with me. Well, that's not a literal statement. And I think that statement is absolutely applied to marriage, because if your love for your spouse, it should be so strong that it gives you the perception you don't really care much about anybody else, although you do, and people see it. But in comparison, like, people could say, man, John, you love Tanya so much. It's just like, I don't see you that passionate about anything else. I'm like, cool. That's the way it's supposed to be. And you know what? When I was raising my kids, I was very passionate about them. So it's not that I wasn't, but in comparison, I think that's what Jesus was saying. Unless you love me so much that it makes it look like you hate everybody else. That's kind of what he was saying. That's exactly what he was saying. He didn't really say to hate your mom and dad. That would be dumb to say in a literal
And
sense.
contradictory to almost everything else in the Bible.
That's exactly right. So you
I
know,
know.
that's, huh?
I hate when people use verses like that from the Bible to quote unquote prove that the Bible is nothing but full of contradiction.
Yes, exactly. And you just have to know how to read it. It is, I mean, Jesus when you go all the way to the Gospel of John, he told his disciples, up until now, I have spoken to you figuratively. So everything he said before that was figurative. As an example, one of my favorite stories in the Bible, only because it makes me laugh. Jesus was actually kind of funny, if you think about it. He just fed the 5,000 with a couple of fish and a loaf of bread, type of thing. 3 loaves, 5 loaves, fish, all that. He just does all of that. Perform this miracle. Now the disciples jump in the boat. They're headed to the other side of the sea, lake or whatever
He
it
takes a
was.
nap.
Well, well, yeah, there's a story about that, but that's not the story I'm on. But yeah, exactly. They're like, Lord, save us. He's like, oh, you with little faith. I'm like, you're Jesus. That's easy for you to say. Oh, ye of little faith. What? Okay, but that's not the story.
Right.
The one that it makes me laugh is that they get in the boat, and as they're about to pull away from shore, Jesus says, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees. Now, yeast in the Bible represents sin. That's why you talk about unleavened bread in the Old Testament. You have to go to the altar with unleavened bread. You can't have any yeast, because once the yeast gets in there, it spoils the whole loaf. It spreads. So a little bit of sin is all it takes for it to spread. So he said, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees. So the disciples start talking to each other, and they're like, oh man, I bet we forgot some bread back there. They thought they forgot the bread. And Jesus said, Jesus looks at him and says, why are you
really that?
Yeah, why are you so dull? And one translation says hard-hearted, completely oblivious to spiritual meaning. And you know what? That's the way that the world is today, like Lonnie was just saying, that people try to use that stuff. No, you're spiritually blind. That's why you're not understanding it. When he says, why are you so dull? It's because the disciples who had been walking with him and seeing him do miracle after miracle spoke figuratively, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees. And they still didn't get the spiritual meaning behind it. What about us? Do we get spiritual meanings behind the stuff that we see every day?
Right.
Exactly.
And that makes me think about the verse that you gave us to find in Ephesians 10.
6. There's not 10
Or
chapters,
12.
but nice try though.
I 6.
You meant verse.
6,
I know.
Right.
I had to pounce. I'm sorry.
Right. So no problem. Jamie and I were discussing it, and it made me think, like how the Bible, like it to me, in my mind, it's like sewn together. Everything is sewn in and goes together. You can go from one story so far into the Bible, go all the way back to the beginning with Adam and Eve, in my mind, and see how even way back with Adam and Eve, how everything applies even to them, and how we are with each other, and how you're talking about marriage, and we have different roles, but we are different people. How we, just like Adam and Eve were different people. They were different in sex. They were different in role. They were different, just two different people with two different brains.
Yep.
And between my wife and I, the biggest thing that I am noticing and having growth in is the fact that there is no blame, even when someone is not, one of us are not living in our role, because say Jane we talk about things, we've ran into a lot of walls where, you know, she has had
Lost.
difficulty applying certain things or sticking to. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you cut out a little bit here and there.
Sorry.
You're-
So Jamie could, you know, not stick to what she said or whatever. If I, at that point, fight with her or it upsets me, we're talking about how much we love our wife. I love my wife so much that it almost becomes a burden when I know that the direction that we're going in as a team is not going the right way.
Correct.
You know, it gets me so upset that those are the reasons why I have acted and conducted myself in the way that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm no better than she is. And if you look at Adam and Eve and you take that verse where Eve defied God's words that were given to her from Adam,
Mm-hmm.
he had a path. He could have gone one way or the way that he went. He could have went in several different directions. And in my eyes, the way that he went was the way she was going. Now she was not right. She disobeyed God. But what did Adam do? He disobeyed God as well. And that could be, we could speculate, that could be because he loved Eve so much that he just, you know, he finally went her way, or he did not want to fight with her, or he did not want to argue with her, or maybe he was heeding to God's words in different ways and not looking at it as a whole. And therefore he did the same thing. So he's just as to blame. And we are, a lot of times, I told Jamie, we think of, and so does she talks about it in a lot of ways, we're on this side of the cross. Yes, we're also on this side of Adam and Eve. And at that moment, it changed our lives to this is what we have. So now we went from, we have a perfect world. We have no sickness, no anything, nothing to worry about, a God that protects us, and we have nothing to fear but him, to a world where now everything out here just about is out to get us. And how do we go about that? And how are we strong together? A strand of three.
Mm-hmm.
How are we stronger together if we don't work together? And when one is wrong and fails or falls or comes up short, instead of coming up short with them, I think we should come up stronger, bring them up, just like it says in the Bible.
Yep.
And not go about it the way that we do. And I would never have gotten to that point or that thought process until I actually got into the word. And that's why, like you say, I think it is important for us to not only be in it, but understand it and act in it, because if we don't, we're human and we're going to fall short. And therefore, instead of picking Jamie up, all I was doing was fighting her, fighting back, and all of that stuff. And after today, I have this thought now that's like, I no longer will fight with my wife. If she just isn't an understanding, I'll try to help her understand and then just stay diligent and do things in a more loving way like she's asked. I don't even think my wife knew in times what she was why she was asking me to be a lot nicer other than just her feelings, and doesn't want to be shouted at and doesn't want to be cursed at, and doesn't want to be all that. Or maybe she just doesn't understand where I'm coming from enough to where she would be like, okay, well, instead of fighting this, let me see, is what he's saying have validation? Does it coincide with the Bible, in which I'm telling him I want him to be more like, so on and so forth, But the whole thing about it is how do I myself, or how does she herself conduct herself in times when things just do not add up properly, And then that way there, we're helping each other up instead of fighting each other. And I feel shame and guilt for being that way in the past. I just didn't have this mindset. So
Yeah, but you're not anymore, so stop condemning yourself over it. It's done with. I think that we spend too much energy beating ourselves up. And I get it, dude. I get it. But I think Jamie has probably forgiven you, and I'm pretty sure Jesus has too. So now it's your turn. But I love what you said earlier, talking about the differences. That's why God made us so different, because we can't think like a woman, and a woman can't think like a man. So you add those two together, when you're willing to work together, compromise, learn from each other, you got one strong unit.
Yeah, and I think that we get too caught up in thinking that just because we think differently, one has to be right and one has to be wrong.
That's right. Conflict does not exist without your participation.
I love everything you just said, Lonnie. I have a meeting I have to go to right now, guys, so I have to hang up. But you two continue on and fill me in, okay, honey?
Crap, you're
Wait a
supposed to
minute,
say
here
that
comes
he had
your, here comes your jealousy husband. Well, what is this meeting and with whom?
My meeting is with Lynn.
Oh.
And to update, Lonnie can give you like, you know, our whole thing that we did about Misty. And I do have a lunch date with Hayden's girlfriend's mother this Thursday to discuss everything that was going on with them. So
You mean a week from
I
today?
will leave you guys with that. Yes.
Gotcha.
A week from today.
Nice.
Alrighty, guys.
Listen
I
at you
will
go.
talk to you later.
All right, Jamie.
I love you, Jamie.
Thank you. Love you too. Bye, John.
Bye.
Bye. I love you, Lonnie. But you know, you're talking about the Adam and Eve story. It's such a powerful story of marriage. And it's exactly the model that God uses. It's in the book. I even show in the book a diagram, and you probably have seen it on my PowerPoint where all the gears turn.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually put that in the book, an image of that shows the model. Well, God speaks to the man in a marriage context, because Jamie can hear from God every bit as well as you can. But in a marriage context, when it comes to things of marriage and you leading your wife, God speaks to you directly. Then you
Mhm.
relay that to Jamie, just like God told Adam, Adam told Eve. Because you know what? When he created Eve from Adam's rib, he could have told her the same thing at that very moment. Now, I've already told your
Right.
husband, I'm telling you, don't eat from the tree of good and evil. Just don't touch it.
Right.
So he could
Right.
have, but he didn't. Why? He's using the husband. And that means the wife has to learn how to trust. The husband has to live a life that is trustworthy.
Trustworthy.
That's right. You have to be trustworthy enough that she trusts you when you make a decision. That's not what she wants. We, again, you know, we've all talked about this. We're a big picture species. They're an immediate future species. You know, that doesn't mean they're not goal driven. But, you know, I use the example of when she talked to Tristan about, no, you make your own food. I'll show you how to do it, but then you're going to do it and you're going to clean up. Most women want to go help their kid. That's a natural
Yeah.
instinct. And it's our big picture going, no, if he can do it himself, let him do it. Because if you're doing it and he can do it, you're not helping him, you're enabling him. There is a difference.
Right.
So that's the beauty of
If
men
you
and
help
women.
that chick out of the egg, it will not live every time.
That's right. Yep. Make them learn how to fight. People think making life easy on everybody is helping them. You're destroying them. Because you literally weaken people that you do stuff for when they can do it on their own.
Right.
Like, you know, with me in ministry, you know, you see me do the PowerPoints, and it'd be nice to be able to have somebody create my PowerPoints for me. Because, you know, it might take me a little while.
Right.
However, me doing that gives me confidence and a sense of a not validation, a sense of worth in a way. But it also allows me to challenge people. I mean, I'm sitting here building my own website, Lonnie. And I would rather have somebody professional do it and have it all nice and super sharp and all of the keywords and the meta tags and all of that stuff where it pops up on Google. I don't know how to do all of that, nor do I have time to. So eventually I'm going to get to the point where I hire somebody to do it. But for now, I can do it.
Right.
But what if I just, what if, say, Tanya came here and kept doing stuff for me over and over and over? I'm going to get into the habit of that. You just do it.
Right. And where's your substance in what
Right.
you're trying to teach?
That's right. That's exactly right. So I try to teach that stuff as well. And you know, your wife, man, you can't, I don't know if you could be more proud of her. She is really, really working, even though she's had a couple setbacks. You know, setting back
Oh yeah,
doesn't mean that you failed. It just means, oops,
definitely,
I got to fix it. And I love,
definitely. And I've seen it, you know, as hard as it is for her because of her own nature. I've
yeah,
seen it, and I've
yeah.
told her how proud I am of her. We were watching TV the other night, and I put my arm around her and told her, you're a good woman, you're a good wife, you are an amazing teammate." And she cried and I
Oh,
cried, and and I meant every word of it,
yeah, yeah,
you know, because it is true. I mean, I've always been a person that I may be I may be very diligent, and I may be very, um, I wouldn't say I grew up with tough love. I wouldn't
right.
say I'm a tough love person. I would say I'm the type of person that I do hold other people accountable if they're supposed to be accountable.
Yeah,
I can't do it all. I can't wear every hat. And I,
yep,
and I have learned through military training, through growing up with my dad the way he is, that there are certain things that you just can't do it all. And if you force yourself to do it all, where are you going to be?
yeah,
You won't be able to handle the next thing that comes along because you're too busy doing something that somebody else should be doing, you
correct.
know? So, I've been that way forever, but I also know that you also have to take a step back, and you also have to show them that that's not all there is,
Yeah, yeah,
and it becomes hard when, sometimes it doesn't pan out that way, but uh I do try to take the time out and recognize and celebrate with everyone, including Hayden, when they do, when they do right, when they do it on their own without having to be forced.
yeah.
So I just wish there were more times of that, and I have to find more times for that on my own, because they need to know when they're in the right and when they're doing right.
Well, you know, we've been in a series at church that talks about family dynamics and all of that. And our pastor on Sunday said something I thought was really good. And he said that um, w- w- basically what you said, okay, I used the example to Tanya because she was with her family on Sunday and didn't make it to church. Basically, what he was saying was, let's say that, because I have gotten some misjudgments thrown at me. I
Uh-huh.
don't care. I don't care. I know what my motive was. I know when God speaks, that type of deal. So I don't care what anybody else says. But if Tanya were to say the same thing about me, the weight of the words are much heavier because of the source of those words. Just like,
Mhm.
you know, if she says she's proud of me and I can hear it in her voice that she really is, oh my gosh, throw me over the moon. So the weight of the words and where they come
Right.
from, or is based on who they come from. And I thought that was really good. So you saying that to your wife, Tristan saying it to your wife and what he said, that held a lot of weight. Likewise,
Oh
yours
yeah.
holds a lot of weight as well. I mean, I'm telling you what, man, this has been a blessing just to sit and listen to you two today.
Well, it's all God. I can
Oh
tell
yeah,
you that,
absolutely.
because I don't have it by myself. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, none of us can or do. And by the way, before I forget,
Mhm.
I think I told you earlier the books are going to be here. They said Saturday, but I'm not falling for that Amazon thing again. It says expected delivery date June 4th. Then they send you an email a couple days before that says will arrive June 3rd on Saturday. And I'm like, no, you said June 4th the first time, and then they're going to switch it back. You watch. I bet you they switch it back to the 4th. But anyway, get my hopes up for a day early. Anyway, when those when
Yeah.
when those books get here is when I'm going to start sending out my packet. So if you guys are going to write a letter,
Yes.
I'm running into the not necessarily the end of the time frame, but I'd like to get all of my packets out by probably Wednesday.
Okay,
If you guys can, if you're going to do it, I mean, you don't have to. I just like to get as many as I can.
I'm
And,
gonna definitely, I have tomorrow and the next day off. And Jamie and I have a to-do list. It's not too huge, but it's, you know, we do have time in there, and I will make it a priority so that, you know, you have time to prepare and do what you have to do too.
I appreciate it, man. It's just something that, like, I've got some millionaires. I've got their addresses and everything that I'm sending this stuff to, because I want to get a storefront. I think I told you guys somewhere here in town, especially on the main stretch. I think it'd be great. And there's one open and
Mhm.
it's still open. I don't know how much it costs a month, but it's probably gonna be 3,000, 3,500 a month probably. Cause it is in
Mhm.
the heart of the main stretch. And I mean, it's right,
Location.
exactly. It
Key.
sits right across from the exit to Walmart.
You, you
Yeah.
can't get any better than that. That's almost like the gates.
Yeah. So I've
You
got my
know?
eye on that one. And so I told Tanya, hey, if it's God's will for us to have it, it's gonna happen. It doesn't matter how long it's vacant. So that's, that's my immediate goal. I've applied for an Amazon small business grant as well. And it said like, how do you contribute to your community? I'm like, well, I help marriages without charging them. I think that's a pretty big contribution when everybody else, like
Right.
this couple I met with last night, she had been emailing people, and the cheapest one that responded said it's $120 a session for an hour. And I
Hmm.
looked at them and I said, I'm not here to pad my pockets off of your struggles.
Right.
Not my style. I just want to help. Anyway, so I'm going to hit these millionaires up and see if they can't drop me some cash flow.
There you go.
And I told Tanya, how cool would it be? You walk into this office, you've got the big Marital Monkey logo across the counter. You hear jungle music in the speakers. You got a few plants with monkeys hanging off of them. Look, if you're struggling in your marriage, that's going to make you go, well, this is kind of odd. It's going to at least get you thinking about it. Like, well,
Mhm.
they're different. Yeah, you could say
Right.
that. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm up to.
Off
And that's, huh?
off the wall, so to speak.
Yeah,
Monkeying
yeah.
around.
Yep. Yep. Trying to put fun back in marriage.
Right. And
Then,
that's an amazing. I just want to tell you too. You have, no matter how different and odd that it is, and will probably make people laugh at first, which we all know that comedy and humor it attracts people more than just about anything.
mhm,
But you know, it's an awesome statement and logo, and you know,
yeah.
it, I just I'm astounded. Like when Jamie first told me it was John and Tanya, it wasn't Marital Monkey, it wasn't none of that stuff. Didn't explain all that to me. And then when we've had our first session, I think I was on the road and I saw it, your background and all that, and I was like, what is going on here? You know? And I look at where I am right at this very moment from that, and I'm like, you know, wow, it's impactful for sure.
Oh, thank you,
You
man.
definitely put a lot of thought and a lot of everything into what you do.
I appreciate it, man. One
And you're
thing.
blind. It just you blow my mind.
Well, thanks. Oh my goodness. Well, believe it or not, man, I'm getting into a new venture, and I think I may have told you guys, but I can't remember. I've been talking to, I talked to several people, so I forget who I tell what. Did I tell you about my
Mhm.
stand-up comedy deal?
Yes, you did. Yes,
Okay,
that
well,
you and this other guy who is deaf, maybe.
yeah, but that's not it. That kind of
Oh,
fell by the
okay.
wayside. Yeah, I am literally okay. So when we did the night of comedy, I scrapped
Mhm.
my format because of the guys that told me what they did, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I'll scrap mine. And they're like, no, no, no. I said, no, don't do. They didn't come to see me. They're paying to see you guys because they were trying to talk me out of giving up my stuff that I was going to say. I was like, shoot, no, man.
Mhm.
I said I was just going to do it for fun, but anyway, what little bit that I did got such a good response. And two of the comedians said, man, John, you got some laughs. Okay. So I started doing a little research that you've heard of Dry Bar Comedy, right?
Yes.
Okay. I emailed them after that night and I said, how do you get booked? And they said,
Mhm.
send us a 20-minute professional video of your routine.
Mm.
Okay. I don't have anybody booking me as a comedian. So I actually, Lonnie, am going to Louisville, which is 45 minutes from here, on Monday night, June the 19th, and I'm doing open mic night.
Yeah,
With,
wow, there you go.
and I have a 5-minute routine,
Mhm.
and I'm going to do a 5-minute, whatever you call it, 5-minute routine. And they say if you kill it and you get a really good response, there's a chance they will bring you back as a headliner for open mic night.
Wow.
And do like 15, 20 minutes. I went, there's the avenue. So I've got to go up and kill it on the 19th. Hope they invite me back. And I'm going to put a bug in their ear. Look, if you thought I was good enough, even to slightly consider me, please give it more weight because I want to use it for an audition for Dry Bar Comedy. And I have to submit it in August. Because if I can pull it off, Lonnie, and I somehow make it to Dry Bar Comedy, do you know how many views those comedians get? We're talking hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, well, they have to be big for me to, hear about it. From where are they based out of? Do you know?
Provo, Utah.
Utah. For us to know about it all the way over here on the East Coast, I mean, it's got to be
Yes.
pretty big, especially as big as comedy is.
Yep.
We look at these really big time professional comedians that are so successful that they're in movies,
Yeah.
blockbuster movies. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, the competition is out there. It's got to
Yeah.
be big.
Yeah. So if I can somehow make it through these, I'm going to call them rounds, and I can send that and Dry Bar books me, I'm liable to have
Mhm.
2, 3, 400,000 views. And I go by the Blind Fury. So they're going to look that up.
Uh-huh.
I'm John Helton, the Blind
yeah.
Fury. They're going to look it up on the internet. And then they're going to see I'm an inspirational speaker and I do marriage ministry. There's no telling what that would do for the ministry. No telling. So
Right.
that's kind of my goal. Plus, I love to make people laugh. That's one of my bigger joys is just being silly and getting people cracking up. But the good news is being blind, I've got an advantage because I'm automatically funny even if I'm not.
Yes.
It's the same reason I carry a
Yes. You crack me up.
large it's the same reason I carry a large drum set. Before I ever hit a drum, they think I'm awesome because what my drum set looks like. I could be a
Yeah.
terrible drummer and they won't know the difference. I'm like, look at those drums. Because I've got drums. Well, I've got a lot of
Right.
drums, but I got cymbals everywhere. They automatically think I'm awesome.
Uh-huh.
So the perception's already there. The same thing. I'm walking out on stage with a blind cane. They're already amused. Like, uh-oh, this guy's blind. And then I start popping off with blind stories.
Right.
Like, when I went to the bathroom and peed on the urinal that was out of order, so they had a plastic bag over it. That's just a real life story.
you pulled a Gallagher. You know who that is, right?
Oh yeah, the watermelon squasher.
Yeah, with the sledgehammers and
Yep.
everything you can find.
Yeah, I sure did, man. I went in there and I started going to the bathroom and I'm thinking, there's something doesn't sound right. And then I have, and I won't say it like this, but I had to stop midstream. And I'm like, why does that sound funky? And I put my hand up there and I felt the bag over the urinal. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's out of order. So I've got a guy standing next to me that never said a word. And I'm like, oh, I got to wait for him to leave. And he left. And without being vulgar, with equipment in hand, I had to take off toward the stall area and finish my business there.
That is, oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, It's horrible in one way, but in another way,
It's hilarious. Yeah.
funny. That works. It works, I tell you.
Yeah. And I mean, I officiated a funeral and walked in the women's bathroom. I was, what? Excuse me.
I've done that, and I can see. So I think most men can relate. You get into a place, it's all shaped different, signs look weird, or they don't make sense, or the wording's too small. You got to go so bad, and you just walk in and go, "Wait a minute, there's nothing on the walls. I must be in the wrong. I must be in the wrong bathroom."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So tell me what you think about this. And you can be honest with me because I'm going to send my script to one of the comedians to see if he can read over it and tell me how it looks. Because he's the one
okay.
that helped me out before I went on stage and told me, he
Mhm.
said, get rid of that one. He said, it's funny, but I've heard that one so much from a blind guy, from a blind comedian. Drop it.
Mhm.
He said, your other ones are in a perspective I've never heard before. And this dude's been doing it for like 25 years. He said, I've never heard that before. He said, that's hilarious. He said, use this one. I said, okay, I got it. Cause I used two of them. I think I told them to you, but so what I'm thinking about doing, being an inspiration, I love to inspire people and encourage them. So I want to throw a little tidbit in there about that. So at some point I'm going to say, being blind is horrible if you make it that way. And being blind is a blast if you make it that way. Of course, I'm going to say it more dramatic. And I'm going to say, but being
Right.
blind, people ask me a lot of questions, but I have a few questions of my own. And then go through the car in the neighborhood, the Christmas gifts and all that. And then say,
Mhm.
where was I going with it? Oh, say, but I have been asked questions such as, what does it mean to be legally blind? Well, the answer is simple. That means I can be blind without getting arrested. But one
Yeah.
day I did decide to be a little rebellious, and I got up and I was like, today I'm going to be illegally blind. I got caught, got arrested, got thrown into the handicap prison. And unfortunately, apparently the arresting officer was as blind as I was because he threw me in the deaf prison. And all these deaf people are coming up to me and doing all this sign language stuff. I'm like, dude, I can't see a word you're saying. So, so they kicked me out for bad behavior because I kept ignoring everybody. But here's the question. If a blind guy talks to me like that, does that mean I'm also deaf?
At the same time, yeah.
I'm the Helton Keller of today.
That's hilarious.
So that's kind of some of my ideas. Because, people do say, what does it mean to be legally blind? That means I can be blind and not get arrested.
Right.
Until I was illegally blind and got arrested and got thrown into deaf prison. So,
That's funny.
So you like the line of, I can't see a word you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that got me.
Because everybody says, I can't hear a word you're saying. Well, I can't see a word you're saying.
Yeah,
in case you haven't noticed, Mr. Deaf Guy, I'm deaf. I'm deaf too, because can't see a word you're saying.
Yeah. And that's very good comedy right there, where if a person has to think about a joke, but not too hard, that makes it even funnier. If it's something that they think about for a second and then it's got that aha
clicks.
moment,
Yeah.
It clicks, and that's what's good. That's what's good humor.
I love the snowball laughter where you can hear the crowd start to get the joke and then it just ends up in a massive eruption.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the best ones. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a comedian the other night and that exact thing happened. I laughed more at their response than I did his joke.
Right. Yeah, it's the laughter around you that gets it even funnier,
Yeah. I even thought about, I don't think I haven't found a way to tie this in because they always do this like a tag back thing to where they will end their set kind of referring to something they said earlier. And I thought about trying to come up with something about Tanya because she talks to me, but she talks in the same voice. She mumbles sometimes. And I'll be like, what'd you say? And she's like, oh, I'm talking to myself. Nothing. I'm just talking to myself. So now I don't know when to listen, when not to listen, because if she is talking to me, it's the same exact tone and volume. But most of the time when she's talking to me, she's walking away from me. And then,
Right.
and just kind of leave it at that. And then at the end of the set, and I'd say, speaking of my wife, I walked in her office the other day, and when I did, I farted. And she turned around and said, "What'd you say?" And I just said, "Oh, nothing. I was just talking to myself."
Yeah. And that's awesome too in comedy. I love that when they do that. They say something in the beginning
Yeah.
and bring it back. So
Yeah.
it's like two jokes in one at that point, and it's hilarious, and that is hilarious, and it's so ironic. All the times that you talk about the funny things that Tanya does, it's the same exact things that my wife does. My wife will speak to me sometimes, and she swears she's speaking. First of all,
I
we
know.
both know that Jamie speaks in a way sometimes because she's from Phoenix, New York, and I've noticed that people from or Pennville, and people who are from Pennville and Phoenix is the only place I've ever been where people speak and you don't understand what they're saying. They turn he's and she's. They put the verb before the predicate. It's so backwards, but they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get beat up all the time in conversations because I'm like, wait a minute, didn't you mean so and so? And how did you get to that? But I don't understand what you're missing some helping verbs, all that. And everyone around her will say, I knew exactly what she meant. And I'm thinking, all of you are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. But
Yeah.
then you add that to the fact that when she talks to me sometimes, it's like she's already had the conversation with herself. So she's not speaking for me to hear her and respond. She's just speaking it out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll be like, wait a minute, what did you? I said, da 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 da. And she'll say it the exact same way she said the first time. And I'm like, I certainly didn't hear you this time either. And she'll just look at me and go, and I'll say,
Yeah.
well, if you were speaking to me instead of the wall or the other room that you were walking into, maybe I would have heard it. Well, it doesn't
Right.
even matter because I'm like thinking to myself at that point, yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter because you already got it. You already have it. You already have the answer. Like,
Well, and gosh, I know that is so funny how that, women think versus men, but here's the way I think I'm going to open my set. And again, you can tell me what you think about it because you like comedy, but they're going to introduce me, this is John the Blind Fury. And I'd be like, hey, everybody, it's good to almost see you today. And just kind of pause.
mm-hmm.
And then if they don't really laugh, say, if you didn't get that joke, it's going to be a long night for all of you.
Right.
Kind of set them up and to say, if you knew I was legally blind, raise your hand. If you didn't know, raise your hand. Okay, for those who raised their hand, what part of me being blind did you miss? We've already made this clear. Why are you raising your? I can't see your hand. Something like that. And a comedian told me that was good stuff, so they thought that was good. The other tag back I thought about doing early on when I do that neighborhood joke about walking down the road with my glasses and my cane, and I hear a car and I wave. Do they wave back? And if so, why? I can't see the wave back. But if they don't wave back, that's just rude. I just waved to you. Either way they go, they're wrong.
Right.
Then go on down to the end of the set and do that legally blind, went to jail, and then say, they're over there talking to me. I can't see a word they're saying. I guess that makes me deaf, kind of like the guy driving the car that waves at a blind guy walking down the street.
Yeah.
I could tag back with somehow intertwining those two where, I can't see a word you're saying. Well, now I know how the guy in the car feels when he waves at me in the neighborhood.
Right.
Something like that. So I'm thinking I have a 5-minute routine I have to put together. See, I've got all kinds of stories, so I could fill it up with stories easily, but I want to be a little more unique.
Right.
And I still might tell I peed on the, because I'll say, all right, dudes, when the urinal's out in the bathroom, what do they do to it? They put a plastic bag over it, right? Well, sometimes blind people don't know that it's out of order.
Right. And that'll make them laugh in itself because they'll start thinking about it.
Yeah. I'll have to figure out a way to word it, but yeah.
And then you definitely got to put that part in there when you walked into Tanya's office, because I think that's funnier than heck.
You think the
When
farting
you-
thing?
Yeah, when you talk about how your wife speaks the same way, as the first time you didn't hear her. So then you walk into her office and then you do that, and she says, "What did you say?" You're like, "Oh, I'm just talking to myself." That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
All right, I'm gonna have to go with it then. So now I've got to figure out how to tie into it.
Yeah, that is hilarious to me. That's funny. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah, yeah, nothing. I'm just talking to myself. I could use something like, when you're married, you have to think quick sometimes to stay out of trouble. Like when I walked into my wife's office and I farted.
Mhm.
She turned around and said, "What'd you say?" "Oh, nothing, honey. I'm just talking to myself." I don't know if I
Yep.
should. I don't know if I should say, when I did that and she said, "What'd you say?" I had to think quick. So I just said, "Oh," and then say the line. I think that might be the better way to approach it.
Yeah. It gives it a little bit of pause when they're like, "Wait a minute, well, what did he say?" He didn't come right out with it
Yeah.
immediately.
And then tag
It'll give
back
them
to
a minute
that.
to think. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you kind of throw them away and then drag them back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And end it with that.
Yeah,
And then I can, thank you, Alan, whatever.
right.
And, I've got a phone that when she texts me, it says, "You have a message from your wife." That's the soundbite that plays. But my wife, and I could even say, did anybody here have a wife that machine gun texts you? Well, my phone says you have a message from your wife, but when my wife texts me, it sounds more like a rap song. You have a message from your wife. And I start busting. And then I open those 18 messages and it's 21 words total.
Right?
It's true.
Yeah,
You have
that's true.
I'm too white to dance to that, but I tried and I pulled a groin.
Jamie texts me, and I get so many of them. My phone will say like it'll have, when I'm driving, I can literally just bring down my top bar that has all the information in it, and under the phone set, it kind of like outlines everything that you have going on,
Yeah.
and it'll have Jamie, a picture of Jamie. I call her Sweetness, so Sweetness is next to it, and then it'll say missed call, missed call, missed call, missed call, message from Jamie, message from Jamie, message from Jamie, message from. It looks like I got in trouble in school and I had to write 50 times on the board.
Did I ever tell you the sex text I sent Tanya being silly with her? Did I tell you all that story?
Yeah, I think
I thought I
you
did.
I don't remember what the context was, but I'm pretty sure you did.
But it's when she was talking about getting her dental work done. And she said something about, I need a permanent fix for this. It's driving me nuts. And my response was, well, last time you did something permanent, or made a decision for something permanent, you had to have sex with it. And then I get a text back. What? I'm like, why don't you understand that? Oh, hi, Dad.
I sent it to the wrong.
I sent it to my dad. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's awkward. Better than mom, but that's awkward.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, my dad probably forgot it already. And I put a bunch of laughing faces. He said, "What?" And I put a bunch of laughing faces. I said, "I was trying to make a joke with Tanya, but now it's even funnier." And then I get a text from him today because he always sends me a good morning text. He sits there every morning and texts all these people good morning. Well, I get one that says, "Good morning, sweetie. Last day." And I said, "Well, good morning. Last day for what? ... sweetie." And I knew what he was doing because my sister's last day of school is today. She's a counselor at a middle school. And so he calls her sweetie. So I knew who it was to and what he was doing. I had that all figured out, but I couldn't resist it. I don't know. What's up, sweetie?
I do the same kind of stuff. You know what I do that go ahead.
I'm sorry, man. I'm thinking
What were you gonna say?
I might use that story about the last time you made a permanent decision, you had to have sex with it. That's a good joke for an open mic night because you're in a bar area. It's not
Right.
vulgar. I'm married to
You're
her,
speaking their language, yeah.
but it's a
No,
funny
it's
blind
not,
story
right?
because I sent it to my dad.
Right. Yeah,
That's, that
yeah,
might be
that's perfect. It
hilarious.
falls right in line with it all.
Yeah, yeah. You got to be
Yeah.
careful when you're texting as a blind guy.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to
Yeah.
Tanya, see if that would embarrass her
That
too much.
falls right in.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I might have to
she
use
does
that
like that.
story. Yeah, she doesn't like me telling the muffin top
That's
story.
funny.
I don't want people imagining you with your shirt off. I'm like, well, I know you can't stand it. Doesn't mean not everybody else can.
Oh, that's funny. You know what I do to people in text? I love it. Say I'm going to their house, right? Or I'm supposed to meet them somewhere or something. I do it to everybody. And they'll be like, are you here? Or, some kind of question about, am I here or what time I'm going to be there or whatever. I won't answer it. I'm already there. I won't answer it. I'll just go in like
Yeah.
I didn't get the text. And then I'll wait till whatever we were supposed to do is over with and I'm already gone home and it's almost time for bed or whatever. And then I'll answer the text. Like with something like, nah, I changed my mind, or no, I decided not to, or whatever.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
literally like, what?
that's
I
awesome.
said this like forever ago. What are you talking about?
Yep,
And then it just opens up for a funny conversation.
I love
Especially
it.
when it's someone you haven't done it to like 50 times.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great every single time. It's new all over
You,
again.
you
I
know what's
love it.
really weird is you and I have a very similar quirkiness sense of humor. I mean, in the same vein, like I tell people, even though I have a security system on my house that sends me alarms if somebody ends up in the
Mhm.
driveway, I will say, let me know you're here. I don't open the door unless I know who it
Mhm.
is because I'm blind. I'm not just going to open it for anybody
Mhm.
most of the time. So somebody like Dave,
Mhm.
he'll show up and he'll put, we're here. I'm like, ooh, that's odd. So am I.
Yeah.
That's it. A stupid response, but how that's ironic. I am too.
Right.
Whoa. Huh, you just never know. Small world, isn't it?
Right. Small world. Yeah, I didn't create this joke. I heard comedians say it a long time ago. But they go somewhere and the person's like, yeah, I called you, such and such and blah, blah, blah. And then he looks at him, he's like, well, was I home? He didn't even answer the call. Wasn't there? He's like, well, was I home?
What's I home?
Yeah.
Hey, go real quick. Yeah. Marital monkey. Yeah. There was and this is another one of those jokes, like you said, that is perfect. It's like, I could use this with Tanya. I mean, she's blind, but she's not stupid, but they talk about all the blind jokes. Like I called my wife and she picked up her phone and I said, or she picked up the phone and went, hello. I said, I can't remember how the joke went, but like, what are you doing? It's like, how did you know where I was? It's a cell phone. Cell phones ring wherever you are.
Mhm.
Like, so when they answer the phone, they're like, how'd you know where I was? It's a blind joke. Like,
Yeah.
get it? I can't word it because I don't remember how the joke goes, but I thought it was so funny. Uh-oh,
Yeah.
Alexa, stop. That must be my warning. I got a 1:30 as well. Hang on.
Okay.
Oh, it's 1:15. Alexa, stop. I still have
Yeah,
15
I'll just tell you this last one. Sometimes I'll do it to people. Like if I call them and I'm giving them, directions or something to do or a list or, hey, can you do this for me? And make sure you do this, this, or this, or whatever, just giving them directions. And then I'll say, hey, and they'll be like, yeah. I'll be like, you got a closet and you got closets, right? You got a closet in your house? Yeah. Do you have a pretty big one? Yeah. Do me a favor, go to your closet. They're like, okay, open up the door and whatnot. I'll say, yeah, open it up, blah, blah, blah. They'll be like, all right, now what? And I'll be like, now do me a favor. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, hang this up in it. and then I hang up the phone after the whole conversation's done. And every time they'll call me back and be like, what the, what did you? I'm like, oh, I wanted you to hang that up in there, you know.
Oh, that's
it's-
awesome.
It's hilarious, and
That's
it
great.
just gets them. They're literally standing at their closet, and they're like, "Why would I let someone direct me to a closet in my own home?"
Yeah, that's
I mean, it's
awesome.
kind of a prank, you know,
The
but it's
hang-up
not a
thing's great.
mean prank or
Yeah.
anything like that. And you know,
That's
oh, I
great.
don't know. I just love, you know, I like being funny, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Problem with humor for me is my funniest. People say I am hilarious, but my funniest jokes or funniest ways I've ever been a lot of times, and this is what's not so great about it, is at times when, you know, it isn't really that funny to the person. It's just funnier than funny all around, you
Mhm.
know, and I had to curb that. So I'm not as funny as I used to be,
Well,
you know, to most people.
you
But
can
it's for
reroute
good
that.
reason.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, that's one of those honor God things, but
Yeah,
um
it is.
I have another one that I'm going to try to work into it. And I don't know how to do this to, you know, as a stand-up bit, but people are walking up and they're like, you know, they say something to me like, "Hey, John, it's, you know, so and so." And I'd say, "I'm glad you told me because I am terrible putting names with faces."
Yeah.
You know, things that you don't think about.
Right. Because you're not a blind person. You don't think about that. And then you're like, yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I
I'm
am.
not good with putting names with
Yeah,
faces.
I'm horrible putting names and faces together. Just terrible at it.
Oh
And you
my
know, most
goodness.
people get that joke immediately. Most people do get that joke pretty fast. They're like, "Oh, that's funny." You know, the good to almost see you. It takes them a second, and they're like, "Am I supposed to
Yeah.
laugh?" Yeah, they feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable laughing about it. But a professional comedian told me one time, he said, the key when you have something like being blind or somebody that might have cerebral palsy or something is to go out on the stage and immediately start talking about it so everybody feels comfortable. So mine's going to be pretty much a whole blind thing other than that I farted and my wife asked me what I said.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll start it. You know, that'll start off slow. I don't know how to word the beginning of it because I have to say something about, you know, she kind of mumbles and sometimes I can't understand her. And when I ask her what she said to me, she tells me she was talking to herself. So I don't know how to make that funny, but even if it doesn't go very well at the beginning, the blind story should pick up some steam.
Right.
And then when you get to the end, that last line before I walk off the stage
Yeah.
or fall off the stage.
Yeah, you know, you have to word the beginning of it because you could go so many ways with it, but the whole thing is first, you know, she's got to be accepting of it, that she's not embarrassed by you saying that.
Oh yeah.
And then, you know, you definitely can't ruin it right off the bat with a line that, you know, like for example, her voice, when she mumbles, her voice sounds like whatever, and then tie that in with farting because that's not going to work out either.
Yeah.
Even though it would be hilarious to people, that wouldn't be great for her. But I
Yeah.
mean, you definitely have to think of a good witty one for the beginning of that, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I might just do
You
the
know.
I could just say, you know, my wife, you know, I am married and you know, I'm brainstorming right now, but you know, my wife and I, you know, we've been married getting close to 5 years now. And I've learned being married to her this long, she talks to herself a lot more than she talks to me. Because every time I ask her a question, like, what did you say? She always says, "Oh, nothing. I'm just talking to myself." So I pretty much gave up on that. So anyway, so, you know, but being blind and just kind of, it's kind of one of those quick hitters. And then I can move into
Mhm.
it's horrible to be blind if you make it that way. It's a blast to be blind if you make it that way. Um, and then go for my set right there. Almost like the first part's not really a joke. It's just a kind of
Yeah.
a comical. She talks more to herself than she does me. And just leave it at
Mhm.
that. and then go straight into the blind stuff. And then at the end, tie it back in with that. I don't know, just brainstorming.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a good outline to find out how to go about putting it in there.
Yeah. See, the muffin top story to me is hilarious, but she doesn't like me telling that one, so. So if she doesn't
Yeah.
like me telling the muffin top story. She might not let me tell the one about last time you made a permanent decision. You had to have sex with it. What?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
maybe
sorry,
not.
Dad. Wrong text, wrong person.
Yeah, however innocent they are, she might not like that, that's for sure.
Yeah, and if not, I'll come up with something else. I have plenty of them.
Yeah, I know. I've heard quite a bit so far. I could only imagine what you got in your bag of tricks.
Oh man. Well, one of my funniest was when I was doing the Wednesday night workshop, I would go in every week with a story that happened. And I mean, they responded beautifully. I mean, just hysterical laughter. And one of them I remember I said, yeah. So this morning Tanya was leaving for work and she was trying to be quiet. And our dog was kind of hovering around the bed. And she says, Tank, get up here, pounding on the bed. I'm like, what? What was that? Those just funny moments to where she's trying to be quiet and then she starts pounding on the bed for Tank to jump up there.
That's Jamie.
Yeah.
That's Jamie all the way, man. She will not turn on a light, not do any of that, not blah 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 blah. But then Tristan will come knock on the door or something. I'm supposed to be sleeping for work. It's still early for them or whatever. And she'll be like, "Yeah, bud, what would you like?
Yeah.
How can I help you?"
Exactly.
Like, you almost broke a toe walking around the house, so you didn't turn a light on, but yet someone lightly knocks on the door. It don't wake me up, and then you wake me up out of a sound asleep to
It's
where my
awesome.
body didn't move, my soul sat up.
Yeah. How about the dog
Or-
and people repellent story? Did I tell you that one?
Mm-mm.
I'm in bed.
No, you
Tank's
didn't.
up. Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
I'm in bed. Tank's up next to me. Tanya gets in bed. Tank leaves me and goes and snuggles up next to her. And me and my humor turned around and said, my goodness, I am a dog and people repellent. And Tanya, without missing a beat, said, not dogs. As if the muffin
That's
top story
horrible.
didn't kill me.
Right.
I was already devastated because I have a muffin top, and now I'm finding out that I'm not a dog repellent, just a people repellent.
Yeah.
I thought marriage is supposed to be good.
Jamie is a trip. My wife kills me, man. The things that she will do to try to be, whatever, but then something else is like, it's almost like it takes her completely out of one. Oh, look, something shiny.
I lost you, Lonnie.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. I heard you yell and it made me laugh, but then you disappeared.
She just is, she's distracted by things like she tiptoeing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, something shiny. Oh, look, something shiny. She's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Dory.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. She is like Dory. When we watch that, I look over at her sometimes and I won't say a word and she'll look at me like, shut up.
You know what? We need to get our wives a shirt. It's the best shirt I have ever seen. It had the AC/DC logo on it, except it said ADHD.
Right.
And underneath of it, it says, I'm on a highway to, hey, look at that squirrel.
Yeah. Oh, man. I saw a TikTok that was hilarious about that. The guy was like, I don't know what HDs are, this country guy driving a tractor trailer. I don't know what HDs are, but my doctor said I got 80 of them. Oh, that cracked me up. Cracked me up.
Well, one more story before I hang up, because I don't know if I've told you. Like I said, I talk to people. I don't know who I've told. It's the same principle of being really quiet, trying not to wake me up.
Mhm.
So I used to get on her because she would be really loud. She would open her drawers and slam them and shut the bathroom door. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to sleep. So one morning she's doing this. She's walking around the house. She's pushing the doors where, you hear the, and then she goes in the bathroom, the door shuts. She goes in the bathroom. You can hear videos playing on her phone. She goes in there and gets under her sink to get her curling iron out and it's just like 35, 40 minutes. And then it's just about time to leave. She walks up, leans over next to me and says, I'm leaving. Could you hear
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I did the very last part you cut out.
So
I heard all about the noises and the slamming the doors and the curling iron.
okay, yeah. And then she walks over to the bed after all of that, leans over and goes, I'm leaving.
Yeah. That's Jamie. That's Jamie 100%. Everything I tell her, she handles everything. I'm like, there's the manhandler. She manhandles everything. Opens up her nightstand drawer, blam, slams it shut. Gets up, grabs something out of her dresser, blam, goes out the door, blam. Goes in, makes a cup of coffee, and when she shuts the silverware drawer, she
Great.
shuts it so hard I could tell you how many spoons, forks, knives are in
Yeah.
the drawer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's
And then
awesome.
comes back and it's like, have a good day.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, man. I do have to run. I've got 2 minutes before my next one.
All righty. It was a great session. I loved it. Talk to you later.
It was awesome. I love it, man. It's a good thing you don't live here. We would take over this town.
You got that right.
I'll see you, buddy.
All right, later. Bye.
Later.